What's up and welcome to Me, You, and Switch 2. I am me, Tom Tate, and you are you. So let's talk about Switch 2. This is the latest and greatest Nintendo Switch 2 news brought to you every Tuesday and Friday in snackable 5 to 10 minute episodes. It happens to be Tuesday, May 12th. It is 7:53 a.m. on the East Coast. This is episode 99. So we've made it to 99. We have one more to go. I say one more to go like I'm ending the show at 100. I am not ending the show at 100, but I'm very excited to hit that milestone. I hope that you had an awesome weekend. If you are new to the show, welcome. Thank you for being here. We're going to dive right into things today. Most importantly, we're going to get to the news from the latest Nintendo financial reports. It is the end of their fiscal year, so every time we get the earnings report, there's a lot of news, some interesting bits of information here and there. Lots of people in the media and video game podcasters, they tend to pick it apart into a bunch of little stories. They pull it up and they break it into a bunch of little headlines, little articles. But I'm going to cover the big stuff, the things that I thought was important. You might have already heard, but the Nintendo Switch 2 is getting a price increase in 2026. I truly felt that this was inevitable, especially watching, PS5 and Xbox get their price increases. The Steam Deck is really difficult to get at the moment. The Steam Machine, which was supposed to release, I think in the first quarter, was delayed, probably due to pricing and component issues. I've mentioned it a few times on the show. I just felt like the Switch 2 was going to have its day, and now we know what that day is and what the price will be. So after September 1st, Switch 2 will be $499. It is currently $449.99 in the United States. So it's going to go up to $500. In Canada, it'll be $679.99. It is currently $629.99. And then in Europe, it will be $499.99 euros, and it's currently at $469.99. Okay, so this isn't the worst price increase imaginable. $499, that's what I paid for when I bought my Switch 2 at launch with Mario Kart World. So it's essentially that $80 value that was there at launch is no longer there. So if you want that base Switch, it's going to be $500. But I remember back in 2017, I picked up a Switch 1 for $299 at launch. So for $300, you were getting that base console. And now if you want a base Nintendo console, it's going to be $500. It's not even 10 years later, right? And games have gone up to $70, $80, for some titles. So it's just increased, right? And I think the cost of living has increased across the board. So it's unfortunately, gaming is really starting to feel like a luxury, right? In my opinion, I really think if you want to be a true gamer, you have to have this disposable income that not everyone has. So I think people are going to be a lot more judicious with the games that they play and with the consoles that they purchase and invest in. Wild times for sure. Mr. Furukawa, Nintendo's president, specifically referred to the rising cost of components like memory, exchange rates, tariffs, oil prices. I'm not making a political statement. These are all things that he actually mentioned in the financial reporting. The price increase is out of necessity to maintain some profitability on the hardware sales. So they launched it at a certain price when components were a certain price. And then the rising cost of memory due to artificial intelligence and data centers has kind of squeezed the whole industry, right? So we're starting to see a lot of that. There's some bright news, though. There were 19.86 million Switch 2 units sold in the first fiscal year of the console. That is a ridiculously large number. So already you have a pretty solid install base, right? This isn't a Wii U situation. They are expecting to sell 16.5 million units in the coming fiscal year. That's less than this past year, but it's still pretty impressive. I think they're optimistic about this number. This fiscal year will end on March 31st, 2027. So I think that's the right date. You could probably do some analysis to say, okay, in order to hit 16.5 million units in today's market conditions, you need to have at least one or two massive titles, right? So what would those titles be? Like a new Mario, 3D Zelda, Smash Brothers, the next generation of Pokemon, which we know is coming. I'm not sure if your Yoshis and your Star Foxes and your Metroids and your Mario Parties and your Mario sports games, I don't know that that's going to do it. So you have to imagine between now and let's say the end of March 2027, there has to be at least one or two mega titles that we just don't know about, in addition to like Pokemon. They shared sales numbers for some key software titles. Mario Kart World sold 14.7 million units. Donkey Kong Bonanza sold 4.52 million units. Pokemon Legends Z through A Nintendo Switch 2 edition, 3.94 million. Pokemon Pokopia, 2.41 million units. Pretty impressive. Kirby Air Riders impressed me, 1.87 million units. I felt like that was kind of a niche game, but it seems like a lot of people picked that up. And then this one, Pokemon Fire Red and Pokemon Leaf Green, which released digitally, collectively sold 4 million units. So that, 4 million units, and people really said like, oh, that should have been free. That should have been on Nintendo Switch Online. But they charged for it and 4 million people showed up. So that's Pokemon for you. Some other interesting bits that I picked up on. They announced a rise in research and development expenses, which could indicate anything, but it's fun to speculate. I think personally it's probably too soon to see a Switch 2 Lite, but maybe they will fast track the development and release of a Switch 2 Lite just to get a cheaper SKU on the market, right? If you figure conditions are going to be so terrible, if they estimate that conditions are going to be so terrible in the next 18 months, they might want to have a cheaper Switch 2 around the holiday season, not this holiday, but the next holiday. So you might see something in the spring pop up, right? A Switch 2 Lite that's not dockable, right? But able to play all these games on handheld. The other thing they shared is that, to no one's surprise, they have unannounced games, right? We knew that. They have unannounced games that will release during the year that will be announced when the time is right. That's not really newsworthy, in my opinion, but I saw a couple articles that specifically called that out. We know that Nintendo will announce new games between now and the end of the year. I anticipate we'll have a Nintendo Direct at some point in the summer. We have all kinds of events that happen around what traditionally would have been E3 over the summer. So we'll see kind of what pops up and how Nintendo shows up. The other bit of news that came out this week is that Nintendo veteran Takashi Tezuka is retiring. This is very sad, but expected. I think he is 65 years old. He's been at Nintendo for 42 years, so he surely earned this retirement. If you are not familiar with Tezuka, he is a true legend. He is a legend in the business. He is a legend at Nintendo. Game Informer actually has a good tribute to his legacy. I'm going to link to that in the show notes if you want to check it out. Let me just list a few games that Tezuka directed. Super Mario Bros. 3, Super Mario World, The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past, The Legend of Zelda: Link's Awakening, Super Mario World 2, Yoshi's Island, and that's just in the Super NES and kind of mid-life of the Game Boy. He went on to produce and influence like 100 games after that, all heavy hitters, all the top Nintendo franchises. So he is one of the mainstays. I think Nintendo has done a good job, though, from what I've read, mentoring new creators and designers and producers. So I'm hopeful that as the veterans retire, games retain that same magic that many of us grew up with. And hopefully, he might still have a voice. He might still have a voice at Nintendo from kind of a outsider looking in perspective. Okay, let's wrap things up. Last episode, I promised I would cover reviews of the game Mixtape, which released on Friday. I'm really sorry, but I just can't do it. I started playing Mixtape over the weekend, and I've been so enamored with the experience that I don't want to read any reviews. I bookmarked all of them, but this is one of those rare occasions where I went in blind on a game, and I want to keep it that way. So I don't want to spoil anything for me. I don't want to spoil anything for you. So I'm doing you a disservice if you're interested in the reviews of this game, but you can Google them, you can look them up, and I promise once I finish it up, I'll revisit the reviews. I'll share my experience with the game. But I'll just say this. If you love music, specifically music from the 1980s or the 1990s, or if you just love like 1990s nostalgia, like music videos and VHS tapes, and, just being a teenager and getting into trouble, this is a narrative-driven game. It is like Life is Strange. It's, even has Dispatch vibes, in my opinion. Totally different story, totally different gameplay. But just the way it tells a story, don't sleep on this. Don't sleep on this. It is rated M for mature. It's not a kid's game. I will note that. But I will say I'm definitely enjoying my time with Mixtape. Okay, that's it for today. Switch2pod.com for the show notes and the subscription links and all that stuff. That's switch with the number 2pod.com. I'm on Blue Sky and Instagram at Switch2pod as well. I want to thank you as always for your time and your attention. Someone dropped a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts recently. There was no written review, but that's totally fine by me. If you want to just pop on and just drop a star rating, I appreciate that. If you want to write something, I'll read it on the show. A kind rating or review goes a long way. Sharing with a friend, a family member, or online community goes even further. It keeps me going, especially as we get ready for episode 100 in just a few days. I will be back on Friday to celebrate that fun milestone with you. And until then, much love. Now go play some games.